As of today, November 3rd, the conflict in Palestine and Israel is officially the deadliest for journalists since the Committee to Protect Journalists started keeping track in 1992. They found at least 36 journalists and media workers have been killed since October 7th. I'm still in contact with some of the Palestinian journalists who I interviewed about Al Jazeera journalist Shireen Abu Akla's murder last year, and one of them told me they believe the figure is actually 38. But out of the 36 deaths the CPJ has been able to confirm, 31 of them were Palestinian. 4 were Israeli and 1 was Lebanese. An estimated 10,000 people have been killed since the violence erupted on October 7th, with 9,000 of them being Palestinian in the West Bank and Gaza, and 1,400 being in Israel. Meanwhile, Israel continues to bombard the Gaza Strip, including a densely populated refugee camp. And just now, an Israeli strike hit an ambulance convoy. Gaza officials said the convoy was carrying wounded people from the Al-Shifa hospital, but Israel claimed an ambulance was being used by Hamas. These are exactly the kinds of conflicting narratives primarily Palestinian journalists are risking their lives in Gaza to clarify. But Israel's military is now telling international news stations that it can't guarantee the safety of their journalists who are operating in Gaza. This is despite the fact that journalists are still considered civilians when reporting on a conflict. Meanwhile, Palestinian journalists are continuing to report the news, even as Israeli airstrikes kill their families. Or even as the news they're reporting is that an Israeli strike killed their colleague. As this journalist said, you don't have to speak Arabic to understand the pain of this report. Take a listen.
شعارات نرتديها فقط هي لا تحمي أي صحفي على الإطلاق لا تحمينا هذه الدروع ولا هذه ما نرتديها فقط هي شعارات فقط.
While filming this, Musa al-Shayer of the Palestinian Journalist Syndicate messaged me back. He told me Palestinian journalists in Gaza are being terrorized and intimidated from reporting on what's happening. This, he said, is causing them to lose confidence in international humanitarian law, international human rights institutions, and the international community. He said these groups must put pressure on Israel to stop hurting innocent people and journalists, and must hold perpetrators of crimes against journalists, children, and women accountable in the International Criminal Court. I've reached out to other Palestinian journalists and will update if I hear back. Until then, what do you think of all this?